Hello and welcome to our PRBI live session today. I'm your host Tarunjeet Ratan, and today we meet Susan Fall, a true pioneer in the world of trucking technology, a dynamic PR professional. She's won many an accolade in the industry for her stellar work. A little bit about her before we add her on. Susan has graduated from the University of California, Santa Barbara, and began working for Qualcomm in 1993. She was there at a time when telematics and GPS were revolutionizing the trucking industry. Qualcomm was leading the way, and her job was to make sure that everybody knew about it. And if you know about it, you know who's behind that. She launched LaunchIt PR in 2000, and under her leadership, LaunchIt has focused on helping technology companies become leaders and experts in their specific transportation industry segments. Her passion and dedication to the transportation industry has ensured that LaunchIt is recognized as the premier PR firm for some of the most successful technology companies. She's also the founding member of many an organization in the industry and has been well awarded for her work. So let's get to know more about Susan's impressive journey and PR in the trucking industry in today's live session. We will just add her on. Hey, Susan, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. That was a nice introduction.
Thank you. Before we get started on trucking and PR, can you help us understand, why you got into PR and what keeps you here?
Really, from a PR standpoint, I thought I was going to go into journalism. That's what I had wanted to do. And out of college, got an internship with the Olympics, which my job was more of a PR side. I like to write. And when the 92 games were over, I returned to San Diego and got a job with Qualcomm. So I'd love to say I'd love this great answer that like I always knew I was going to go into PR. But the truth is, it really is just what I fell into. And why I stay in it, I think
Yes, that's right.
That's another interesting one because the world of PR has changed tremendously in the last couple of years. I think we all, anyone who's in PR has seen that change in the good and bads. There's some things about it I'm not so sure I'm liking, but from a trucking standpoint, I am. It's a family. No one leaves the industry. I have people that I have known in the industry for 30 years. Once you get in it, you don't leave it. And so my passion, I think, comes more, a great deal more from the industry, especially for me, really trying to improve the image of the truck driver. And it's such a vital, vital role. And no one seems to realize that. There's so many people that don't realize what would happen if we didn't have truck drivers. And for me, that has become really a passionate mission to figure out how we can attract a next generation of truck drivers and how we can just the current ones, we can let them know we appreciate what they do because again, I don't think people fully realize what would happen if they went away. So that makes PR fun for me.
Absolutely. I don't think anybody would have thought about that, right? That's a very interesting point.
It's I think because of e-commerce and certainly, during the pandemic, you saw what happens when the supply chain breaks down. But it was the truck driver who kept going. It is the truck driver that is driving into disasters to bring disaster relief, to bring medicine, to bring, water, whatever it is. Yet they don't get recognized for that. It's an interesting situation that in the US, if we don't take care of it soon, we're gonna have a problem. And no one wants to be truck drivers. And so that's what helps keep me passionate about it and all the new technology that's coming into play and the role again of the supply chain and just the way it makes our world work. So
true. And that's a very unique reputation challenge that you're trying to sort. One that will actually keep the entire supply chain moving for that matter.
It is. And, it's interesting because, again, the technology is what I specialize in. And so I understand the world of trucking and logistics technology, but the truck driver obviously plays a role in all of that. So that gets to be my side kind of passion project, so to speak, is working on the image of the truck driver. What LaunchIt specializes in is that role of technology and the role it plays in keeping the supply chain moving.
Absolutely. So, while being in PR, employed by somebody else or working in an agency is something quite different, right? It's a high energy, adventurous, adrenaline filled journey itself, right? But PR entrepreneurship is a whole different ballgame. How did
So, that's such a long story, but really, in a nutshell, it boiled down to 8 years with Qualcomm, and getting ready to get married and have kids, and um, seeing a need for that these companies were coming into the trucking industry thinking that, well, just because I have GPS I can get into trucking, and you can't. It is such a complex industry that people don't understand that, and we have our own language in a sense, like any industry, and it helps who kind of helps get you in the door. And Qualcomm was going through some management shifts that that I wasn't agreeing with. Maybe it was a combo of things, but so yeah, decided to start LaunchIt, and I was fortunate that at the time one of Qualcomm's biggest competitors had wanted to work, and so I was able to have an instant client and not go through that scary part. Yeah.
awesome? It's always exhilarating as well as terrifying to start on an entrepreneurship journey, right? But very curious to know, while the entire world is just getting onto the hybrid or the virtual model of agency working, right? You've always been virtual from day one. um, how did that work? Decide to be virtual.
you know no different than now, just phone calls. It was a lot of phone calls, a lot of travel, I will say, and that's been an interesting thing to adjust to right now during the pandemic, is that lack of travel. But we've all adjusted like everyone else. So for me, it was, it's a lot of phone time. I have a team of experts. That's really is what made the virtual work, of having other experts in the transportation industry. So I don't have to do as much hand holding. I don't want to say, but I'm able to. You're really able to get your team to work well when everyone has a good job, good understanding. They know what they're up to, and I don't have to be over there seeing it. So yeah, it's hard to believe.
Absolutely. And I think it's a very intriguing model, for a lot of people to adopt. Initially, I remember a decade ago, in fact, brands as well as media were a little uncomfortable with virtual agencies. But acceptance, it's only due to, I think, pioneers like you guys, right, who kept the flag flying high about virtual agency model working. And we are glad that such models exist for us to kind of imitate.
Yeah, and it's funny because I really never thought different. And maybe again, because I'm in San Diego, there are quite a few technology companies here. Obviously, Qualcomm is here, but not that many. I couldn't specialize. If I had chosen maybe to be a generalist, then sure, I could see having an agency here, and I represented San Diego-based companies. But
Right.
having this, national and international, I have worldwide clients. that are trying to get their products into the U.S. It worked. It's funny, and I guess I never thought of doing it any different than that. And because of what's happening right now, and people are more virtual than ever before, it's coming more to the forefront. But it's what I do. It's all I knew.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's get down to trucking. Okay,
Yeah.
that's very, very unique vertical. In fact, I remember when I met you for the first time in California, I was blown away, right? Like such a unique vertical actually exists in the entire PR field. Why uh, why this particular specialization, and how is it unique from the others that exist in the industry?
This particular one would come just really strictly from the fact that I was thrown into it with getting that job with Qualcomm. And I look at it to this day and I'm like, how either they were brilliant or I don't know, or it was like putting a young female, I knew nothing about technology. I knew nothing about trucking. But it worked. It worked. It worked well. I came to really enjoy the industry is what made me stay. And then the tech part is what's so intriguing. I mean, it's such a fascinating world of change. We've gone through some standstills where there's not a lot going on. Well, right now there's a lot going on. I mean, the autonomous vehicles, the electric vehicles, and then just the understanding of when that supply chain is broken, why is it broken, where is it broken, and what can we do to fix that link in the chain. And so that's a really fascinating puzzle that I enjoy the companies that come to us with with what they think is a solution. That's what's been fun for me in the last handful of years, because I have 30 years at this now, and because I have that history. I can have a product presented to me and I can understand usually pretty quickly if it truly is going to make it or not. Are they really solving a problem, or are they trying to make a problem that doesn't really exist? And so that's what's kept me really going and enjoying the strategy of product development, and then how do we get it to market.
Interesting. So how is PR, or let's say reputation building, different in this vertical?
I don't think it's probably different than many other B2Bs. Again, it's the only industry I know, so it's hard for me to I can't compare it to anything. Certainly different than consumer.
Right.
We don't. I think trucking is still very relationship oriented. It is, even during. I think we've changed a bit now because of having to be more virtual. But prior to that, it's a handshake is a handshake. It is, let's go have a drink. It's a very personal relationship. And so I think from a PR standpoint, a lot of what I do is, certainly your standard of working with reporters and getting news out there, and your basic PR. A lot of mine is relationship building and understand and introducing not end users but potential partners. I do a lot of that. Your technology, you guys need to form a strategic alliance, and that I don't know if that exists in other industries, but certainly the relationship is a huge part in trucking.
Definitely, that exists in other verticals as well. I think
Right.
collaboration is becoming, part and parcel of what PR professionals are expected to do now. Are there challenges that are unique to this vertical, though?
What was that? I'm sorry.
Are there any challenges that are unique to this vertical, though?
I don't know if it would be, again, unique to this vertical. I know lately, from a PR standpoint, one of the biggest challenges has been the way journalism and magazines have changed. It is not, we've seen that evolution, but there's a lot more pay to play now. The sponsored content, which is tough for a PR professional. I think it has become a challenge to adapt to, even the world of influencers. And we're seeing more of that in our space, maybe not as much. We see it more on LinkedIn than Facebook. But that's a hard thing. That's an interesting thing to adapt to, because I'm used to being very factual. This is the news. This is, and you work with a journalist to make the story happen, and it's not. So I don't think that's a challenge that's happening just to trucking by any means. I think it's happening in the world of PR across the board, which is sad. I mean, I think it's that whole fake news thing. But when content is paid for content and it's pay to play, you do start to question really the validity of what you're reading about, and that's hard to overcome.
Absolutely. I think that's a challenge that PR professionals and journalists are facing all across the world.
Yes.
Surprising crosses boundaries and continents, and the issue is the same, right? Before we get into media, what is the media landscape like in the trucking vertical?
So surprisingly, there are a lot of trade magazines. And it's segmented as well. So, and since I do both logistics, if you think about, I kind of say I do things with wheels. So I don't specialize in warehousing or manufacturing, but there's quite a few magazines that cover that. I mean, in transportation alone, we've got the logistics side, but then you also have the fleet owner and transport topics, the magazines that focus on owning a trucking company, or on the logistics side of it, or for shippers. So we are very trade focused. I have, specific, depending upon if it's a product that is for the, a refrigerated carrier, so a cold supply chain product, there's a whole magazine just for that. So you have to be very, you have to know your magazines. It would not be smart for me to pitch, certain things. It's again, like any PR professional, you got to know your magazine. But we surprisingly have quite a few. That landscape has changed, because they used to be weeklies and monthlies, and now, as you know, they're dailies and hourlies. I mean, it's a constant churn, and so picking which one you give an exclusive to, or which one you spend more time with is a challenge.
Absolutely. So, very curious to know, has influencer marketing or digital marketing or influencer collaboration made an appearance in this vertical? Does it even make sense?
It does. It does. It doesn't. It doesn't. I don't specialize in that. I don't really. We see a lot of digital marketing. I see that, and influencers. We do. Our influencers would be a different type. Actually, probably not a different type. There are some truck drivers who are very involved on Facebook, who have a lot of followers, that I am sure start to get some. Oh yeah, that have endorsers. I'm sure, like others. In my tech world, because our products are purchased by fleet owners or fleet managers, and that's a very different audience than what. And so I think we see a lot of movement on LinkedIn, but I wouldn't say there is a particular influencer that I would go to try to reach my client market.
Right.
It's
I guess it's not made so much of a entry into this vertical, right? It's still sacrosanct and still more PR.
I would have to say yes on that.
Yeah.
Knock on wood. I hope it stays that way.
It should.
And maybe it's my age, or I like traditional PR and have all, it plays a very vital role, and it's, change is tough, but as long as it stays that way for a while, I'm good.
Awesome. But yeah, legacy media, any which ways, has its own, it brings in a different amount of credibility to every story that you're putting out there. Definitely. But last year must have been a game changer for you as well. Can you help us understand, what were some of the biggest changes that came into your vertical?
Probably, I would say we did start to get more attention. People started to understand trucking more. I mean, I worked with Fox News on having some clients, and mostly truck drivers, that worked with one of my carrier clients, that never existed before. A mainstream journalist wasn't wanting to talk about the logistics behind pharmaceutical, of getting the vaccine out. That was huge. That was a huge opportunity for a couple of my clients that are tracking product and a refrigerated product. And that never, it's back to that whole no one appreciates the truck driver thing. No one's really thought about that whole logistics world until we didn't have toilet paper, until we needed the vaccine distributed. And so I would say that that would be the biggest thing that changed, as far as from that end. And then certainly just like anyone else, the standard, not going to trade shows, not, seeing people in person, overall, was a change. But yeah.
What was the biggest change in your agency? Because you'd already gotten over the biggest hurdle, right, that everybody had of going digital and struggling with it, right? You'd already mastered that. So what were some of the very pertinent changes that you made at your end?
I think it would, I think, like everyone at first, it was a bit of a crisis. We lost a third of our clients. Everyone kind of did the whole, I always say PR, I mean, we are unfortunate, or whatever, we are, last to hire, first to fire, so to speak, in budgets. And be that right or wrong, and it's been my 30 years experience of knowing that that's how that works. So yes, when people panicked, it was, hey, Susan, we got to put you, we need to put you on hold, or we need to, so that was, that was a panic. But rapidly, at least in our industry, we saw that, dang, technology and transportation and logistics are huge. And so, that only lasted a couple months of, fewer clients than normal. And then the rest is really was not being on airplane, not getting to see, especially onboarding new clients. We brought on quite a few in this last year. And I usually go, fly to their location, look at their product. For starters, we vet our products. LaunchIt won't represent, unless if I don't believe that it really is going to add value to the industry and really succeed, and they've got the financial backing, we won't take them on as a client. And so that is done in person. That is done, meeting the management team. Do they have the financial stability to really maintain and go to market properly? And having to do that over Zoom was much tougher. I mean, that, I would say, that's a practice I don't want to continue. When we onboard new clients, I want to touch the product, see the product, meet the management, and that just can't be done over.
True. Zoom Technology can only do so much.
right? Right. I mean, it's true.
True. So what's next? What's next for your agency? What's next for this vertical?
Uh, um, I would say what's next for the agency is, I mean, certainly I wouldn't change verticals. I'll always be in trucking. I mean, that's not going to change. Certainly, there's too many years of knowledge there and just too much passion there. Um, Probably what's next for agency is we are seeing a lot more, and it's what I personally am enjoying a lot more, is that strategic consulting and getting in much earlier in the development stages of products, and really helping them, frankly, at some design levels where, you know what, that's maybe not, you might not need that. And that's an
Right.
interesting thing for PR, and I enjoy that. I mean, as I in the middle of launching my own for the first time tech product, that came through development all through the pandemic, which has been a very interesting ride. It'll be on the App Store next week. It's been a very interesting ride being at the early development stages of an app, that we're now will be launching very soon, and that's fun. I like that. I like that a lot.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So good happen there.
We'll watch out for that. But coming back to the industry, like you mentioned that I think last year has been a golden run for the entire trucking industry as such, right? Where do you see this entire attention? How do you see this entire attention panning out? Will it sustain in 2021?
The general interest, the overall general interest, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's here to stay because of e-commerce. You know, people are, you never used to think about how did those products get on the shelf. You know, you just went to the store, you got milk, and now, you know, e-commerce is playing a role in it, and things are, and just overall shipping. I mean, just what happened with our tanker that was stuck for the last week. That is going to ripple affect the supply chain of getting items and getting goods. And so I think that it will be in the forefront of minds. And on our end here in the US, infrastructure is a huge topic right now. And that plays a huge role in trucking and logistics. Is, are we going to really enter into the new age of truly having smart highways, smart vehicles, you know, autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, transportation as a whole is a hot topic right now. I mean, it's and going into the commercial side of transportation, will continue to be, just because the whole logistics world is, you know, you're having manufacturing, you're going straight from factory to consumer now. That never existed. That never existed before. And that's a whole complex world of logistics. You know, malls are going away, and you're seeing those becoming distribution centers. And so there's a massive shift going on right now. So I think we'll, I would think we'll continue to be in the forefront and on people's minds. If we're not, we should be.
Absolutely. So, curious to know, I'm sure in the last 30 years, and especially with LaunchIt, you must have come across many a crisis situation which you handle successfully, right? Can you share maybe one example with us of something that has happened in the last recent months, last couple of months?
You know, it's funny. I don't, from a crisis situation, again, because I don't represent the carriers. Like a carrier, a trucking company, they certainly have to be prepared for, you know, accidents and that typical. From a tech standpoint, this was frankly years ago, and this was when really the intelligence of GPS technology. We had a vehicle that was stolen. It was a tank truck, so that's a fuel vehicle. And times have changed now, and now there's more visibility to exactly, like, we know exactly where our Amazon package is now. But back 20 years ago, you didn't know that, and only the carrier would know that. Anyway, it became a crisis situation where this driver had this vehicle filled with fuel and was heading towards a city building. And from a PR's perspective, I had to be ready and on the forefront to be able to explain how, thankfully, that tracking technology was able to tell the police exactly where it was. And we even had the capabilities, and those capabilities have since gone away, but of slowing the vehicle. And so it was an interesting, but from a crisis management, we don't really see that in the tech side, so, which is
in a world.
It is. Well, I'm glad. I don't think I'd like crisis management. There are specialists for that, and I am not one of them. No.
Okay, so you also spoke about a lot of business that comes into you from international locations, right? How has it been since 2021 started? Because I believe a lot of them have already started being active with the PR, marketing, and are raring to go.
Yeah. So from an international side, I have not seen a pickup in 2021. So it's kind of maintained. Now, that could be my own fault. I haven't been as active and out there. I think that's where, again, from my standpoint, I've never advertised for LaunchIt. It's always been word of mouth. And when you're not at those trade shows and you're not mingling, you're not meeting as many new faces. So we haven't seen, internationally, a lot of international, especially tech players, would come over to our US shows. And that's where and how I would meet the majority of our new clients. So who knows, hopefully, when we're starting to see, some conferences and some shows will be opening up September and October. And so maybe we'll see movement. I'm not looking at 2021 as much of a radical change as probably 2022 will be. I just, in what I'm seeing has happened in the first quarter of 2021, I think we're going to kind of ride an even keel. I think we're seeing a lot of development. A lot of products are being developed right now, and I think then we'll really start seeing the need for the good startup launch PR happening at the fourth quarter.
Yeah, we all hope so too.
Right.
So, yeah. We're all waiting for that to happen. But I think 2022 will be pretty much a big game changer for all of us. Mm-hmm. Coming to PRBI, how has PRBI been for you?
PRBI has been great for me because I have been able to, when you are so specialized, I can't, clients will come and say, but our product also works for the construction industry, or it works for, it's a Wi-Fi based product that works fabulous in a maintenance facility, but it could also work in a restaurant, and so I've been able to, because of being a member of PRBI, I can tell these clients, we can handle that. I belong to PRBI. I've done a lot of work with Caruso. I work very closely with Ellen. We've teamed up on quite a few projects together. In that, it's seamless to the client. They usually don't meet Caruso, really even know that, because I still LaunchIt, still stays in the forefront, meets with the clients, really understands the story and the pitch, and then Crusoe's team takes it from there and pitches it out to their contacts outside of the trucking industry. And I think I can do that with any. If I had a client that wanted to go international, I can, with confidence, tell them, absolutely, I've got someone that could do that for you. And that's nice to be able to do. You being in PRBI has really given me the opportunity to be a massive agency in a sense. I mean, it gives all of us that opportunity to know that we really have an expert in anywhere.
Absolutely. And it's a massive brain trust at the same time.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, especially for me, I feel, because I am a virtual agency, I'm a smaller agency than a lot of the other PRBI ones. And I learn so much from I love the way we share and communicate with each other and talk about, what are you going through right now? Or, what do you find, what are you charging? I mean, all the way down to I like that we shared what would typically be kind of considered delicate information. Can I see a sample of what your contracts look like? Whatever it is, I appreciate it very much. I think it's for agencies of our size, for boutique agencies, it's a godsend. It's fabulous.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. So I'm running out of time. My last couple of questions, right?
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It does. I'm actually shocked when I looked up the time there.
Yeah. So what would your advice be for PR entrepreneurs at this point of time?
It's my advice that I always would be is niche. I truly believe to be an expert, and you have to struggle in the beginning. You really do, because even when I started LaunchIt, I had other industries come to me that were friends, that sort of thing. But I was becoming a generalist, and I didn't really know everyone or everything to know about a certain industry, because you just not enough time in the day. So if you really want to get into PR, I would say find an industry that you like, and then if you can, niche it down even more. I mean, the fact that I'm in trucking is unique enough, but trucking technology, is obviously which certainly limits my take on clients, but it's given me that ability to know. I mean, that's all I do. So it gives me that ability of really having a great deal of knowledge in that. And I think it's better to be an expert than a jack of all trades and master of none kind of thing. But everyone has different views on that. That would be mine, because that's what I do. So I guess that's my opinion.
That's perfectly fine. It's very sensible advice, and I guess to each their own on that sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, it's hard to give. I'll be honest, it's hard to give advice for PR right now because it is changing. Because it is, my niece is like, I don't want to get into PR. I have no desire to be in social media. And I was like, how weird. Like, to me, that didn't, but I didn't think that in her head, social media was the number one thing of what PR was. Like, wow, to me, that's a subset. It's not the number one thing. And is that going to change? Maybe. I mean, we're already seeing how it's increased over the years. Hopefully I'll be retired by the time that we are counting strictly on social media and no longer on human interpersonal relationships, because I wouldn't like that.
I don't think that human personal relationship would ever go away, because by definition itself, PR means, creating those relationships on behalf of our clients.
Yeah.
Last question, right? Work-life balance. You, I know, have pioneered the virtual agency model as such, but a lot of people today, when they go virtual, they are terming what is called as Zoom fatigue, video call fatigues. working, there is no distinction between work and home. At the same time, there is no end to work. It just flows. It just flows with a. It's like a dam that has burst, right? And it's causing a lot of fatigue, people burnout, right? What would your advice be? How do they achieve the work life balance?
You know, I've always called it a work-life pendulum for starters. It's very hard to achieve balance. It's that there are times that family needs to come first, and you do what you can to still maintain and do what you need to do for your clients. But then
Right.
sometimes that swings back, and you're in the middle of launching something, and the family kind of takes the like, sorry kids, we're getting to go today. That pendulum of things. I do believe that people are becoming more understanding now of like a barking dog. Not too long ago, if a dog barks while I was on a phone call, I would be mortified because people wouldn't realize that I had a home office because it was taboo to kind of have you're not professional if you work from home. We've now gotten used to that. We have the dogs and the baby, but what people haven't gotten used to is, you're right, of always being on the clock. And you have to set limits with clients, and that you don't have to verbally do it. It just happens that way. If they're sending you emails at 10 o'clock at night and you're okay with, you're just sitting at home and you don't mind answering it, great. Don't feel obligated to. You have to really, set those hours. I kind of work more East Coast hours. So I'm more of a 6 a.m. and I try to be done by 3 p.m. There are times where, I've got a client on the West Coast who wants to have a 4 o'clock meeting. If it's a crisis, absolutely. If not, I'm like, you know what, let's do it tomorrow. Because if you don't set those limits, you're right, you are going to lose, you will burn out. You will feel like you are always on the clock. And so you've got to, and then at the same time, you can pull back and say, yeah, but how nice, I could throw a load of laundry in that I couldn't do when I was, going into the office. So, okay, you threw that load of laundry in. So now if you're answering an email, while watching TV with the kids, that's the payoff. You did your laundry during work hours. Now, I don't know. You can justify it that way, but I think it's very, very key to set limits. You have to. So
Yeah, that's very sane advice, and I hope that advice helps a lot of people, find that balance that they're looking for. So we've run out of time, but thank you so much again, Susan, for sharing your journey with us and the insights on PR from the vertical that you specialize in. Really appreciate you taking out the time to speak to all of us today about this.
it was my pleasure. I love talking trucking.
Awesome. So that was our PRBI member, Susan Fall, joining us from California and speaking to us about about the PR industry in trucking. Thank you again for joining us for the session today. We will see you again at our next live session with another PRBI member from a different part of the world. Till then, you can view all our live sessions on Facebook or on our YouTube channel. If you have any more questions, you can drop them in the comment section below and our experts will answer them for you. So see you again for